You know, I'm going to give you a history lesson.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country.
Stop laughing! And when I do, start.
Also, y'all did some nasty-ass jokes on my ass, too.
Funny jokes and unfunny jokes come out of the same birth.
You f***ing guys are unbelievable.
Why are you laughing?
Evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Why You Laughing, a history of comedy podcast. And today, I am pleased to introduce to you the cancellation of Chris D'Elia. Slightly different than our usual episode. We've done one of these before, and maybe I should sprinkle in one here and there if people like them. We did the cancellation of Jamie Kilstein. I guess we kind of did it with Shane Gillis getting fired. That's sort of in the same realm. Yeah. But this is a different type of cancellation. It makes the other cancellations look fun and innocent, you know? So if you don't know anything about Chris D'Elia, we'll explain it all today. If you do already have your mind made up about Chris D'Elia, here's what I ask, is that you wait till you watch the entire video to comment. Because sometimes, the way algorithms work, sometimes people stumble upon these videos and say, you're jealous if you criticize Chris D'Elia. I really don't think that's the case here. Hopefully you hear me out and hear my opinions on it. I'm not saying that anything I believe is right. I'm just a man looking for answers. And I don't know that we've gotten a lot of those answers as we sit here 5 years later, basically, after the original cancellation. So we will talk about everything going on.
And I definitely don't want everyone to go back and find when this initially happened and we were like, this guy didn't do it.
Well, we'll talk about it. I don't think the show had even started yet, but I was a staunch D'Elia defender. And you'll watch as this episode goes on, you'll see where I changed my mind. I think you'll probably pick up on the exact moment, because this was at a time where a lot of accusations were being hurled for various reasons. And ultimately, like I said, I was swayed in one direction. So maybe this video will sway you as well. Or maybe it'll sway you against me. Maybe you'll think I'm crazy for my take on this. So let me know what you think in the comments. But all I ask is, if it's a hard stance one way or the other on Chris D'Elia, hear what we have to say first, and then fire away. But first, more importantly than any of this tawdry talk we'll be doing today, the most important thing is that you go to blindmike.net and support this program. I've noticed a lot of people lately suggest things like, hey, why don't you do an Andy Kaufman episode? Why don't you do an episode about Bob Newhart or Carl Reiner or any of these guys? Well, we've done it. So go back through the archives, make sure you haven't missed an episode, and then feel free to suggest. A couple people coming in with some good suggestions lately. So I'll be adding those to the list. And like I said, go back to the archives, check out every Why You Laughing that interests you, and consider becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube. You can become a member and get early access and bonus episodes and all kinds of goodies on Patreon or for YouTube members. So consider doing that. All our links are at blindmike.net. That's where you can support not just this program, but the Blind Mike Project and Who Are These Socials, the other podcasts that I do. So blindmike.net is where you can find all the links for those shows.
My Twitter's there too. Don't forget about that.
Craig's social media. That's the most important thing. Go to verygoodshow.org. That's where they're still defending Chris D'Elia on that program. They like the cut of his jib there. So go to verygoodshow.org. All right. Shall we get into this?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's do it. Where are we starting?
We're starting with the clip.
Oh, yeah. This is a demarcation point for a lot of people of whether or not Chris D'Elia is innocent or guilty. I don't see it that way. It could just be a coincidence. It could be a guy hearing a piece of news that he wasn't aware of. Who knows? But this is where things begin in the journey of Chris D'Elia. When they're hearing, he's on The Fighter and the Kid, and they're hearing a story about someone getting caught with something on Snapchat.
You'd be so very strange to me, though. It's such a weird thing to do.
Wait, hold on.
Wait, she won an award? Strong core.
She was 2014 Miss Kentucky.
That's a strong core.
Kentucky, not exactly that competitive.
All right, man. You said that 3 times.
Yeah, no, I heard you the 7th time, and I ignored it.
It's just a strong core.
Very SpongeBob-ish.
But hold on a second. How did it come out? Like, how did they...
The boy's mother ended up finding it.
Finding it? What do you mean? Snapchat goes away, right? How they...
He probably saved it. You can screen record, take screenshots.
I couldn't find a version without the curb music. I'm sorry. We had to use it.
But it's perfect.
So a lot of people think, why would Chris D'Elia act that way? Why would that be a jaw drop moment, you might ask? Some people think that's the bloody knife right there. But like, it could just be a totally random reaction. But if you don't know the story, you might be wondering, why are they playing that clip? Why is that such a significant thing? So now I think we get into some of the accusations, right?
Yeah, the tweets.
Okay, so these are the tweets that started coming out in June of 2020. Now, don't forget, what was happening at this time is a lot of people were being canceled for a lot of different things. People started coming after Rogan's crew, Joey Diaz, Brian Callen, accusations being hurled out. And this is the summer of love, if you remember, the COVID summer, where people were acting really rationally to a lot of news stories. So it was hard to know what to believe at that time. And these are some tweets that surfaced about Chris D'Elia.
Our tale begins on the night of June 16th.
Oh, I should say, by the way, shout out to Beige Frequency. This is Beige. I used some clips from Beige Frequency, who does a lot of great videos. If you don't know Beige Frequency, kind of an inspiration for this program in a way. He does a lot of documentary style videos, and he's whether you agree with his point of view or not, he does a lot of amazing breakdowns. So check him out if you aren't aware of him.
Twitter user by the name of Simone Rossi was expressing her anger with the casting of D'Elia on the show You. Quote, "I still can't believe Netflix cast Chris D'Elia as the pedophile in season 2 of You. Like the literal irony," end quote. While this tweet seemed innocuous at first, it would go on to accumulate over 160,000 likes and 21,000 retweets at the time of writing, because Simone replied to the tweet with several accusations that rapidly gained traction on the website. The most interesting being what she claimed to be an email conversation she had with Chris. Quote, "Imagine being 16 and being groomed by a stand-up comedian twice your age, and the only reason you never met up and never got physically molested was because you had gotten a boyfriend your own age," end quote. The attached image included part of her alleged conversation with Chris. "I'm in Tempe. Let's hang," smiley face. Simone, "Do you want to meet tonight?" Smiley face. Chris, "Yes, can we make out?"
I gotta say, when I look back, the idea that I defended D'Elia ever is a little gross to me. When I hear the tweet, just this girl is like, he groomed me, and I'm like, you liar. But you'll understand why. Hopefully I explained my point as to why I would have had that opinion. But this Simone Rossi, was that her name?
Yeah.
She launched a litany of allegations. A lot of girls all around the country were coming out and saying, "Hey, that's weird. I have a very similar story about Chris D'Elia." So this sparked a whole flood of tweets and talk online that continues here.
One woman claimed that D'Elia solicited nudes from her when she was 17 and asked her to come backstage for his shows in Vancouver. Another woman claimed that Chris solicited nudes from minors in Vancouver and tried to have sex with her 16-year-old friend, then blackmailed her into deleting tweets talking about it.
I'll be honest, I probably didn't know all the accusations either. This is just going to be a defense of me. No one even knows I defended the guy. I'm canceling myself here. But yeah, there are more, right? Or what's the next one?
Premeditated.
Oh, okay. So there are examples of why this would be. So Chris is like messaging a lot of young girls. His fan base is young girls, by the way. If this is confusing to you, if you're wondering why are all these girls messaging some middle-aged comedian,
if you're wondering where the Dane Cook demo went, it was to this.
Yes, guy. Exactly. That's exactly right. Dane Cook's fans, the next generation that would have been Dane Cook's fans, became Chris D'Elia fans. And so that his show, he was friends with Justin Bieber. He was on the Bieber roast. He did that Eminem impression. So
That's
like,
right.
he had an audience that wasn't necessarily comedy fans. It was these young teeny boppers, which is a phrase that makes me sound very old. But that is why all these young whippersnappers are messaging Chris.
Chris is being a real rapscallion, right?
Yeah. And so if you're thinking, hey, maybe it's just a guy messaging girls he thinks are 18, this next clip kind of shows that maybe he was aware something a little more nefarious was happening.
Multiple women have come forward and said that after interacting with D'Elia on social media, they would receive a message from one of his friends named Mark Hayes. Hayes would then either give them a phone number to text D'Elia with, or send them to a Snapchat account for D'Elia's rap alter ego, Chank Smith. No, you didn't have a stroke during the second half of that sentence. D'Elia has a rap alter ego named Chank Smith, and he was allegedly using the alter ego's Snapchat account to solicit his fans for sex. Probably because he didn't believe Snapchat conversations could be saved. D'Elia also engaged in text conversations with his fans, and in one of the leaked conversations posted to Twitter, someone claimed that the phone number used by D'Elia was registered to a Michael Lenoci. Who is Michael Lenoci, you might ask? Well, alongside Mark Hayes, he is one of Chris D'Elia's openers. Incidentally, Lenoci has a business card that has checkboxes on it with reasons why he's giving you the card. One of the options is, I want to sleep with you.
So there's scheming going on, which is weird if it's just a guy who wants to fuck. You know, it's weird that he would have these layers of trying to separate himself from just hitting on these girls. Now, it's also important to remember, the main claims happening at this time was not that Chris D'Elia was fucking women. It wasn't that he was cheating on his wife or anything like that. That'll come up later as to how the story changed for Chris over time. The problem was this man was being called a pedophile. And people were trying to decipher online, which is always good. All those sleuths on the internet make the best investigators. And people are trying to determine, is this guy committing statutory rape or worse? And the answer kind of became, to me at that time, I remember the answer becoming no, because there were a lot of even the girls' messages that showed them saying like, hey, I'm 17. And Chris replying, oop, too young, sorry, and stopping the conversation. And that's what he tried to prove with emails. I don't know if that's where we're going next, but that was a lot of the deciphering going on. And I still had Louis brain. I was still in the mentality of this is what people do. They try and make something out of nothing. You know, the guy just wanted to jerk off. He asked for consent. And so I was still in the mentality of like, maybe people are just lying for attention, which obviously is the wrong knee-jerk reaction. And this story is a great example of that. It really was a learning experience for me.
But this is his statement.
Okay. So this is the statement that he gave, I believe, to TMZ immediately once these allegations started coming out.
Quote, I know I have said and done things that might have offended people during my career, but I have never knowingly pursued any underage women at any point. All of my relationships have been both legal and consensual, and I have never met or exchanged any inappropriate photos with the people who have tweeted about me. That being said, I really am truly sorry. I was a dumb guy who absolutely let myself get caught up in my lifestyle. That's my fault. I own it. I've been reflecting on this for some time now, and I promise I will continue to do better. End quote.
I like that defense, by the way. I may have said the F slur on stage, but I'm not a child rapist. Oh, good. Terrific. I may have offended some people on stage, but never with underage sex. So Chris launches a defense, right? Is that where we're going now?
No, we're going to...
We're not there yet. Jesus, I forgot how much there was.
No, we're going to when his friends respond, which is the best.
Oh, yes, that's good. Because before Chris's defense, I forgot about this. Before Chris even defended himself to the public, his friends started responding. And Whitney Cummings distanced herself. If you remember, Chris D'Elia was on the show Whitney, the sitcom Whitney. They were friends. Whitney all of a sudden became very feminist, immediately acted like she never really liked Chris D'Elia. So that relationship was done.
She's not with anyone problematic now either.
Well, a lot of people have called her out for that too. But yeah, the second Chris D'Elia's name gets mentioned in this light, a lot of people start backpedaling. The most egregious was the fighter and the kid, Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub. What's interesting about this is a few weeks later, Brian Callen had allegations come out about him. So I don't know if this is trying to get ahead of that or what. But you'll hear these are two guys who have not spoken to their friend yet and decided to speak to us about it.
I always knew Chris is a ladies' man. I have never, and I'm going to say this, I have never seen or heard of him doing anything illegal, ever.
Wouldn't that be great if the Tim Meadows character was just inviting 15-year-olds over on SNL? He's a ladies' man.
Sounds like he's a girl's man.
It's shocking to me as I'm watching this happen. I don't know what to think, and I don't know what to say. I don't. But I'm going to say it again. I have personally never heard or seen him do anything illegal. That's all I can say. And right now I have to believe that because he's still a friend. And it may be unpopular to say that, but I don't know.
Pause real quick. Sorry,
I
keep interrupting this one. That's perfectly fine.
Yep.
No problem with that so far.
Nope.
Hey, I don't know what happened. This guy's a friend of mine. I pray it's not true. I've never seen anything that indicates it's true. Done. Bing, bang, boom. Send it home. Perfectly fine. No problem with that at all. Because you don't know. Why would, if someone is accused of something, I don't go, what do his work acquaintances know about this? You know?
Right.
Perfectly fine. But unfortunately, they continue.
To do, and I'm not going to be some. I just think it's an impossible situation, and I'm just at a loss. I'm at a loss, and I'm praying that what I'm hearing isn't true. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
I can't talk.
Uh-oh.
It's like it's a weird thing because I said to Brendan, I said it's like it's like watching someone die or something.
What?
And also, it's just
his career, I guess.
We haven't. What's important is that we haven't spoken to Chris.
No.
And
what?
We've never been on the road with him. I was on the road with him.
I wasn't there. We'll get to the backpedaling in a moment. I got to tell you, I don't even really know Craig all that well. If these accusations come out about him, I'm giving him a call. Hey, this happened? What's going on here?
And no, it didn't.
It's wild to immediately turn on the camera and microphone. And that's how much a lot of these people need acceptance. And I'll be honest, going back and pulling some of these clips, I think this is probably why my instinct was to defend this guy, because they, without talking to him, without doing any research into it, anything, they're weeping. And they're like, this guy who's a good friend of mine, he's dead. It's like we watched him die. So their instinct is, I want to distance myself from this as quick as possible without knowing any of the facts necessarily. Go back just a little if you could, because I want to hear Brian Callen say, like, I barely even knew the guy, if I'm being honest.
And also, it's what's important is that we haven't spoken to Chris.
No.
And we've never been on the road with him. I was on the road with him about 14 years ago once when he was just beginning, but I've never been on the road with him. So I don't know. I don't know what to think, and I don't know. And that's what's so frustrating.
I'm just sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
So anyway. Yeah.
If I may, also, 14 years ago is when some of these allegations were from.
Also, like, you guys talk to him? No, I got a better idea.
That's the best thing to say, is to say, I don't know what to say. And I'm just, I don't know, man. Yeah. It's a fucked up thing.
I can't talk.
Fuck. Well, that's appropriate. That's appropriate.
Yes, it's appropriate not to talk if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Just shut your mouth. You're gonna make it worse, anyways.
And that's actually a lesson for me, because I don't know Chris D'Elia, and I'm at the time going on podcasts going, I don't know, some of these accusations seem a little shady. Maybe we could all take a lesson from this, and we all shut our mouths until we know some of the facts.
To be fair, when you first heard about Cosby, you're like, well, there's no way.
He wore such lovely sweaters.
And when the accusations get into like the 70s, you're like, well, 10 of these have to be true.
Right, yeah, even if 5 of them are true.
That nothing's true.
Because no matter what the facts are, whatever comes out, I'm as shocked as anyone. I'm hurt. I'm mad. I'm fucking mad, man. I'm mad at him.
Why?
Yeah, you don't know anything yet.
Okay.
I'm mad at him, even though we don't know if this is true.
He's crying like a guy that's like, he got caught.
There's 2 things about this apology. One, if he's not guilty. If it comes out that this man is innocent, you just sold him up the river. You didn't give a fuck about him. You wept, said, I'm mad at him. I barely even knew the guy. I hung out with him once 14 years ago. And if it's true, this apology is kind of saying, well, we figured. We knew this day was coming. So it's a very weird reaction from the fighter and the kid. And it really stood out to New York comedians. That Ari Shaffir clip is next, right?
Yep.
It was Ari Shaffir. I remember Dave Smith also saying something to this effect at the time as well. It's kind of like I just said, where like if this is happening, don't you call the guy first before turning the cameras on? So this is Ari, and this is well after the fact, but this is Ari talking about basically reactions like that.
Oh yeah, the LA scene especially. LA is just the most garbage people. I don't know how much time you spent out there. No backbone.
I was there for 3 days. And I'm not religious. I was like, these people need God.
Yeah, and they just can't wait to sell out a friend to protect an idea of their place in the world. The way they react to Crystalia, Brian Callen, anyone who gets into any trouble, they're just like, sacrifice. I got to save myself. No one's even coming after them. They're like, well, people are asking, but I'm like, who? Strangers are asking? What are you talking about? Yeah, those guys even sell out each other. It's crazy. It's crazy. Immediately, not just like, hey, fuck off. That's my friend. Without even calling them. That's what I saw in LA. People without even calling their friend because they're too busy getting plastic surgery. It was like, let me sell them out real quick.
And that was kind of my mentality at the time because I'm joking saying like my immediate instinct was they're lying. I just like to have fun. My real instinct was like, I don't have any fucking idea.
Right.
None of us know other than Chris D'Elia, maybe people very close to him, like that Mark Hayes or whatever the name was.
People left crying in beds in a hotel.
And the women, of course, yeah. So like those are the people that absolutely know what happened. And my instinct is always like, I'm not an investigator. I'm not going to have a hard opinion on this. And it is strange to me, even still, like when we talk about this stuff, it's strange to me that one way or the other, whether you think D'Elia is guilty or innocent, it's strange to me the people that will comment on videos like this and be like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, because that's true. And neither do you. None of us know. So that's what's interesting about having hard opinions. And it's even more interesting to me, like Ari said there, when people are just looking to save their own ass. They don't give a fuck about whether Chris D'Elia is guilty or innocent. They don't give a fuck about the victims. They care about their careers and how they're going to look if they still do podcasts with this guy. And that was really the gross part of it. And a big part of what made me be like, okay, well, maybe this guy has a story to tell that no one is listening to.
Yeah, as Chris fights back.
Okay, so Chris starts, and this is at the time what I saw and said, okay, maybe some of this stuff is being taken out of context, even though it doesn't all make Chris look great. The greatest defense Chris D'Elia had at the time, even the most staunch D'Elia supporters were like, is he a creep? Absolutely. That's the best. It's a tough defense when your defense is, hey, I'm a pervert, but it's not illegal what I'm doing.
Chris D'Elia's team has released alleged email exchanges to Page Six that appear to be between the comedian and some of his accusers. Access Hollywood has not been able to independently verify the alleged emails. The outlet reports that one email claiming to be between D'Elia and Simone Rossi, one of his first accusers, allegedly says, "I'm 21 now and down to His reps claim he didn't respond to her. Rossi previously claimed that D'Elia and she had communicated online in 2015 when she was 16, when he allegedly asked her to send him pictures of herself and asked to make out. Rossi seemingly reacted to D'Elia's team releasing emails, writing on Twitter, "I already know that no matter what I say, I will continuously be harassed, but my story never changed and never faltered." If anything, Chris D'Elia just confirmed nearly every interaction a girl has posted about him on here was real by confirming that email. Bye. I have said this entire time I didn't realize how serious what he tried to do with me was until very recently. It was just something I joked about in passing or at parties. I literally said that in my original thread. There's really not much else to explain, LOL. So Chris D'Elia's team thought the smartest move for them was to confirm and admit that the Rocket Mail email was really his, just so they could release an email I sent when joking around with a friend that essentially proves he had in fact previously spoken to me when I was underage.
That's the part that's kind of made me lay off having hard opinions on any of this stuff, because I just imagine the girls, especially with the opinion I have of Chris D'Elia now, I imagine those girls having to look at social media every day and people be like, "You're a liar." It's like, fuck you. No, I'm not. Or maybe they are. Who knows, guys? But I don't believe
there's still a chance.
There's still a chance, I suppose. But yeah, Chris started posting emails that were not, and that is fishy. Like, if you're looking at this, that is suspect that Chris has emails that weren't being released in the original version. Like that Michaela Oakland girl who had nothing to do with this, really started posting things that people were sending her. And there was some stuff that was out of context that Chris proved was out of context, like asking for ages and stuff like that. Again, is it creepy to have to ask that sort of stuff when you're a man in your 30s and eventually 40s? Of course. But that's not what was being thrown out there. These were like legal accusations being thrown out. So that's what made it hard to sift through a lot of this stuff, was Chris having technically evidence that changed the way, not even exonerated him, but changed the way people viewed it at the time.
Yeah, either way, his wife's pissed.
Oh, for sure. Well, we'll get to it. That's what Chris thought this was all about.
Here's more proof.
Okay, well, let's hear some more.
The email claims to show him responding when she tells him she's 16, saying, "Oh, I thought you were at my stand-up show. Gotta be 18 to get into that, at least. My bad. Bye." Riley has not publicly commented on the alleged email. A third alleged email released by D'Elia shows correspondence reported to be between the comedian and Clara Schaller, who accused him of saying he wanted naked sex with her in 2012 when she was 17. The new email appears to show that D'Elia asked how old she was, and she responded by saying 12 in an apparent joking manner. He then responded saying answer, and she responded saying 24. Page 6 also reports that he asked for pics before asking for her age, and continued with the conversation even though he didn't get a clear answer on her age. Schaller reacted to the alleged emails being leaked on Twitter. "I emailed the author of this article. It's disgusting that Chris D'Elia is still using his platform to display toxic behavior, and that Page 6 played along with it."
Not to be flippant about this, but is not the most offensive part of that naked sex? Who says that?
A child.
How about naked as opposed to clothed sex? But yeah, there is, like, again, what I saw at the time was like, oh, he's asking for their age and he's proving that. What I see now, knowing more about the situation, is this is a guy who knows the laws in individual states. He's covering his tracks. They're like, it's a scheme that he had worked out. And I believe, this is now my opinion, that he wanted to have those DMs that show he's asking, well, hey, what's your age? You were at my show. I thought that meant you had to be 18. And then he can actually use that in other cases where he's like, well, if the girl's at my show, she must be 18, right? That's what I thought, as proof here. Right. So it is more like, now with hindsight, you see the dirtier elements of it, I think.
Next, we got CNN claims.
Yeah, so more and more come out about this. I don't remember hearing this one at the time. I remember hearing more allegations like this in the Rolling Stone article that came out a few years later. But this is a report that CNN had around that time.
One of the most wild things to me is that Chris maintains all of his relationships have been legal and consensual, and yet has truly never addressed the details of this CNN article. This article lays out 3 allegations: Megan Drust, a hotel worker, and Laura Vitrelli. Megan Drust, a well-respected actress, was the victim of Chris taking out his penis in her car and jerking off to completion while she screamed for him to stop and had to get out of her own car to escape him. The hotel worker was lured to Chris's room after he placed a phony maintenance call saying his AC didn't work, only to be naked once opening the door. This is a well-documented event, as the hotel worker logged a formal complaint at the time, and CNN spoke to staff that was notified and remember this happening. And also Laura Vitrelli, who told CNN that at 19 years old, D'Elia invited her and her friend to a, quote, party after a meet and greet, but upon arriving, there was no signs of a party, and Chris was alone watching Cops and eating shrimp scampi.
This is where
girls, despite them being 19 and him being completely sober. The girls quickly came up with an excuse to leave, but as they did, Chris pulled out his erect penis and chased them out with it.
That is the you character, which is funny.
Yes. Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but this is where we started to separate from it being a debate of, were they 17 or were they 18? Hey, 18's legal. If you don't like that, change the laws. The man might be a creep, but he didn't do anything illegal. Allegations like this is where that argument started to shift, where it doesn't matter the age of these girls. This is sexual assault that he's committing, or at least harassment, at the very least, chasing them with his penis out. So this is where you have a crime no matter the age. And that's where things start to switch. And that's something Chris has never addressed. Honestly, the age of consent, he really hasn't addressed, other than like that TMZ quote. You know, he says kind of a lawyer. It seems like a lawyer gave it to him, where he says the same thing every time. All my relationships have been legal and consensual. He says that. Yeah. Doesn't address anything further. But as the voice you hear there is Kyle Anderson, who did a great documentary called The Chris D'Elia Problem. We'll be talking about that more in a bit. But as Kyle says there, the part that Chris has never acknowledged, there are, no matter the age he thought these girls were, that they claim to be, whatever, there are crimes being thrown out here that Chris doesn't even acknowledge. Like in his statements, in his apologies, anytime when he says he's going to rehab, all these times that he's talked about it, which is not very often, he doesn't address that people are saying, no. There was actual assault committed. I was being victimized, even if I was 24. It doesn't matter my age. So that's something that kind of gets ignored in all this, I think.
Next, we have him being canceled.
Okay, so this is what Craig was referring to. He was in the show You. That is still available, I believe, because it was pivotal to the plot line. You can't erase that. Listen, I've watched You. You can't erase that episode. It doesn't make any sense.
You can't erase him from that season.
He played a very similar character in the show Workaholics. That episode was scrubbed from Workaholics, where Chris plays a pedophile. And listen, I don't agree with the episodes that show blackface being erased from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I don't think it makes any sense, particularly because the commentary in that episode is that blackface is wrong to do.
Right.
With the D'Elia thing, I still think that should be out there. But the premise of the episode is that Adam Devine and the boys know that this guy is a pedophile, but he's a nice guy, so they like hanging out with him. Like they think he's cool, so they ignore the fact that he's a pedophile, which is kind of what Hollywood was doing with Chris D'Elia. So I get the instinct. Yeah, I get the instinct to get rid of that episode. It's a little beyond cancel culture at that point, so I understand that a little bit. But this is another example of something Chris lost around this time.
Originally, the comedian Chris D'Elia was supposed to play the pilot character in Army of the Dead, but he was fired from the movie after becoming the subject of investigations into alleged sexual misconduct. While D'Elia denies any wrongdoing, Snyder and company had no reservations about replacing him. In a recent interview with Vanity Fair, Snyder revealed that the decision to replace D'Elia was a fairly easy one. He also believes that Tig Notaro's presence did a lot more than just make some distance between the movie and D'Elia's scandals. films. In fact, Snyder said that Notaro's performance brought a whole new unexpected dimension to the film. The director explained, "I think the movie is better with Tig Notaro, frankly, because she's more unexpected and she's more fun."
I don't know about that.
Well, this is where you see, this is again where if you get too wrapped up in one argument, one social issue, let's say, like cancel culture was at that time, that was a real hot button issue. Things have died down now, so you can look at it with some clarity. At the time, people like me would look at that and be like, it's another fucking weasel Hollywood. Zack Snyder doesn't have any fucking idea whether Chris D'Elia is guilty or innocent. He's just a weasel. And look at his statement where he's like, actually, it's so much better to not have him. We didn't even want him in the film to begin with. They're such slime balls that they'll do anything to save their own asses. So you get caught up in that, and that makes you somehow believe that Chris D'Elia shouldn't have been fired from that movie. You know what I mean? Like your judgment is clouded because of all the other things that were going on in society. So you lumped this in with that. You're like, hey, someone getting fired for a tweet is wrong, and so is this very serious sex crime that's happening. You know? So that's where I like people like me were completely wrong. But I do think like the knee-jerk Hollywood reaction is what provokes a lot of that, where they're not just like, hey, we don't know what's going on, so we didn't think it was best to have in the movie. It's a comment of like, we know what happened. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
this thing where they just hop on whatever bandwagon is easiest for them. And that's, I think, what evokes, I'm using that wrong, evokes a lot of the reaction from people where they're angry and they're like, fuck you on Chris D'Elia's behalf. It's about other things. As I like to say, it's not about the dishes. The fight is about something else.
It's not about the dishes. Next, Chris returns.
Okay, so this is about 8 months later, maybe 9. This is April, I think, of 2021. Chris D'Elia has disappeared for a while. Or was it 22? I always get the dates fucked up on this show. And people call me out for it. So let me know in the comments. When did he come back? I forget now. But he came back months or maybe over a year later. And he started posting on TikTok. And it was funny because at the time of these accusations, his wife was pregnant with their first child. So you don't hear anything about Chris D'Elia. And all of a sudden he starts posting on TikTok with his new boy, his son. And I guess that was an attempt to get people to be like, hey, what a good dad. So he posts on TikTok a couple times. Then he comes back with this 9-minute video on his YouTube channel, which is called Super Cult, by the way, which we'll get to. But this is part of his comeback. And this is the moment where I said, oh, because remember when you hear this statement, Chris D'Elia has been accused of being a pedophile. People have called him out for knowingly fucking underage girls. And then other women have said he's committed actual sex crime. He has forced them to do things against their will. So those are the accusations. This is Chris's response to it.
It was something that just became life controlling. I mean, I would think about it all the time. I would go and I would do my show, and like I just said earlier, and it was too much, and it became a lifestyle that I didn't know how to stop. I didn't even think.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
This was how it was.
What did? Raping? This is where I'm watching this thinking, is he confessing to everything? But we'll hear what he's talking about. I'm sorry. Go back just a little bit. I talked over it.
Style that I didn't know how to stop. I didn't even think I had a problem. I thought that this was how it was. I thought that guys in my position were lucky enough and fortunate enough, and it was going out of control. And I never stopped it. I cheated on most of the girls that I've been with. I cheated on my fiance now. And this is my dream girl. This is the girl that I want to be with for the rest of my life. And even that wouldn't stop.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I don't have a problem with him cheating. I think if the headline was Chris D'Elia cheats on fiance, I don't even know if anyone's clicking on the article. Who gives a fuck?
Who cares?
So I vividly remember watching this. I think our pal Visionless Dave alerted me to it, if I remember correctly. And I remember watching it and saying, "Oh boy, I think he's guilty of everything." It's amazing what a response can do, because I really thought he was going to fight. When he started posting the emails, I was like, oh, he's going to fight for his innocence. Brian Callen had an accusation come out and sued the person for defamation. I don't know if Callen's guilty or innocent, but that seems like the act of a man who wants the truth out there.
Right.
Chris D'Elia is taking the Kevin Spacey defense. When Kevin Spacey was accused of sexual misconduct, he was like, guys, hand up, you got me. I'm gay. And everyone was like, yeah, we don't care about that. Be as gay as you want.
No. I'm gay.
It's forcing yourself on people we had the problem with. So now when you hear this, you're like, Chris, no one cared about you cheating on women. But he can surely in this 9-minute video, eventually he's going to get to the real accusations, right?
He doesn't, actually.
And I'm sorry. You know, I think that being a comedian, it's funny, the stuff that you tell yourself to make everything okay, you know, like the cheating and the sex every night or whatever.
Blow.
Yeah,
that is okay. Chris,
true.
that's fine. Have sex every night. No one cares.
No one really. There's one person that cares.
Sure, and it should be devastating to her, and she should have a problem with it perfectly. I don't care. I remember saying, like, when Kevin Clancy had his cheating scandal, people were like, "Can you believe it?" And I was like, "I don't know their relationship. I can't believe it because I don't give a shit. Like, it's not my business. It's her business. Her and the family should be outraged, but I don't get why people online care. Cheating, have at it, my friend. Go to town if that's what you want." The problem we all had was that these girls were saying they were underage and yelling no. If you go back to the CNN article, the girl was yelling, "Please, no." And Chris wouldn't stop.
Make it
stop. So here's what we have here. Sorry, let's finish the clip and then I'll go through that.
Cheating and the sex every night or whatever. Yeah, well, any guy would do this, which is not true, or whatever it is. And I just, I don't know.
There's something really gross. And it's moments like this you have to give credit to guys like Cosby. Because at least Cosby didn't say, "Hey, gang, I got to tell you, you nailed me. I had too much sex. I had too much consensual sex. You got me. Hand to God, that's what I did." This was creepy. I remember watching this and thinking, oh, boy, I am changing my tune toot sweet. because here's what's happening. He goes, "I admit it." He's like, "I admit it. I apologize for these things. It was wrong of me." What was wrong? Having sex with women?
Yeah.
Consensually? Can
you believe he did that?
Why is that wrong? No one has a problem with that.
Hello, that's what he did wrong.
Chris is saying, what is being accused, I apologize for. Okay, well, you're going to need to do a little more than apologize. You're probably going to have to serve some jail time. This is really the dividing line to me, because with Louis, my argument that I believe holds true, literally nothing illegal was ever thrown at him. No one ever accused him of anything illegal. They said it was uncomfortable. They said it was weird. And they said they
he asked and he said yes.
Yeah, they said it was weird and it changed their relationship with him.
Right.
To me, that doesn't seem like something a man's life should be ruined for. What Chris is being accused of should probably have him behind bars, or at least a legal slap on the wrist of some kind. There's got to be something for what was being accused. So here's the issue: is that Chris thought just going, yeah, it was all legal and consensual. Anyways, sorry, gang, I cheated. He thought that would kind of distract us. Whereas if none of it's true, there should be no problem with Chris talking about it. It seemed like he didn't want to step into a legal mess and open up the floodgates again. And that was the really gross part that I think changed probably a lot of people's opinions. Although it's not really discussed. It's never, I don't hear it discussed enough how bad that apology was to where it's kind of an admission of guilt, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely.
So what do we have now?
We have the Chris D'Elia problem.
Okay. So now we fast forward a year and a half, maybe 2, to when the Chris D'Elia problem came out. As I mentioned, a documentary about Kyle Anderson. Now, if a great documentary. But if you want to call into question Kyle Anderson, you can do that as well. I don't have a problem with questioning his motives. He has not posted. He's posted one video since this, and it was right around the same time. So he really isn't. But this has over 1 million views, and he has not capitalized on it. So if you want to say like he just did it to make a name for himself, that doesn't seem true at all.
He didn't.
What's that?
He said it does not seem that way now.
No, it really doesn't. But if you want to dig into Kyle Anderson's motives, feel free to do that. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't seem to me to be anything vicious, anything one-sided. It seems like a guy who really did research, talked to a lot of the victims, talked to people in Chris's life. It seems like, I guess the argument would be maybe he got one side of the story and he didn't talk to Chris. I think there's a reason for that we will get to in a moment. But first, let's hear a little bit. I think this is a clip he has. He was working with some of the victims where they were recording Chris on Snapchat. They always go back to the scene of the crime, don't they? He loves that Snapchat, Chris D'Elia.
I can already hear you saying, Kyle, you have to have some sort of proof for these allegations, which I think I legally need to say are allegations. But I do have some proof. You see, Chris went on the record and claimed,
I can certainly say for me, if it's not the blue check mark on Instagram messaging you back, that shit's not me.
So what I would need was like if Chris was dumb enough to, I don't know, create a new Snapchat just to call one of his victims that was talking on Twitter in an attempt at damage control and beg her to delete her allegations. That'd be insane.
I don't give a fuck. I'm just... It's nice to hear a person like I said.
I just don't know what to do from here. Like,
we can keep talking if you can. And if you don't mind, deleting that stuff would definitely help me with people sending death threats and shit.
I don't want to delete everything because it's so infuriating to have people tell you that something you experienced, something you went through didn't happen.
We can talk about it for now.
That's what's interesting to me. This Kyle Anderson documentary, I think, exposed a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because he also, the other thing Kyle exposed is that this was happening after that apology that we just watched. So, excuse me. Kyle even had proof in that documentary that while Chris was posting on TikTok, he posts a video in the car with his wife and child, his brand new family. He's the family man now. He's changed his image. While that's happening, he's messaging these girls on Snapchat. So Chris literally changed nothing. Another thing this documentary exposed, and this might have been in some of those claims. I don't remember hearing it back in 2020. I thought this documentary was the first time I heard it, but he talks about, and a lot of these girls talk about, having to get tattoos with Chris's name. He wanted to brand them. Right around this time, it was weird, the timing of all this stuff. Right around this time, Chris changed the name of his YouTube channel. Why is that significant, Mike? You're probably asking. The name of his channel was Super Cult. And there is a litany of clips of Chris saying, I want to run a cult. I want to have a cult. These are my beautiful babies. Oh, the babies came out to see Daddy in X town that he was in that night. He talked a lot about how he wants to run a cult. There's also a clip that surfaced, much like that Snapchat clip. There's a clip that was going out around that time of Chris talking about Hollywood pedophiles and how it's all a bunch of bullshit. That Hollywood has these pedophilia rings that they're running. Oh, really, dude? Oh, really? By the way, shout out. Maybe we should put the Crack Amico song at the end of this. Crack Amico does a great song about Chris D'Elia. Yeah, Kyle Anderson exposed a lot of stuff. Another thing he exposed is that Chris, much like you heard there, would make himself the victim with these girls. My favorite was that he would use suicide. As a guy who has dealt with suicidal thoughts and depression in the past, I really respect that Chris would call these girls and go, if you don't delete your posts about me, I'm going to kill myself. Like, that's really what this 40-year-old man would do. He was stunted developmentally, where he is like a 16-year-old girl in a lot of ways. So yeah, like he would make them have their Snapchat location, because this guy loves Snapchat. He would make them have their Snapchat location on so he could track where they are. He wanted to be dominant over them. And according to Kyle Anderson, that was happening well into the time of his marriage. And again, the only reason that's significant to me is because it lines up with being after the apology where, oh, he just learned so much.
Next, we have Rehab, which was great.
Oh, actually, can we hear the tour manager clip first? Because that was also in that documentary.
Oh, right.
So this is from his tour manager, Zach, who at the time, Zach was brainwashed like I was, and he was much closer to Chris, and said like he's being railroaded for whatever reason. People are coming after him for no reason, and he was staunchly defending Chris at the time. And then there was one particular accusation that made him change his mind, as Kyle exposed here.
The reporter's email laid out the details of Chris sexually assaulting a girl after a show in Boston.
The victim wanted to remain anonymous, right? I knew exactly who the girl was. I remember that whole night vividly.
As Zach looked over the email, all the details and actions in her story lined up.
And the whole story was in that email. Then when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God. This happened. You know, there were no doubts in my mind that something took place in that room that night, his room that night. And then that was my moment, and I was like, you're a fucking monster.
So it's weird. This documentary comes out and has stuff like that in it. That is new stuff. Like, again, a lot of people that I've seen on Reddit and things, they think this documentary, it's like, well, it didn't have anything new. I didn't know any of this stuff.
Me either.
The stuff that the Chris D'Elia problem documentary exposed, I wasn't hearing that, even in like the mainstream articles that were written about it.
There's a phone call with him asking someone to delete shit. Like, that should be it.
Yeah, and you know what? I will hear to play both sides.
Yeah.
The phone call is to that guy, his tour manager, and it's a clip of him saying, "You just made it so much worse. If people didn't believe it, now they will." And then it just cuts off. If I'm Chris, if I'm trying to play Chris's devil's advocate here, if I'm trying to play monster's advocate, I would say that, why don't we hear the whole voicemail? Why is it just that little snippet?
Yeah.
I did have that question when I heard it, but yeah, the snippet that Kyle plays does sound bad. So you have all this new stuff coming out. And like I said, a lot of it was centered around it continuing. It's not just that it happened, these allegations came out in 2020 and Chris learned and changed his ways, is that it's ongoing, is what Kyle exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, It's just a coincidence. Chris didn't even see this documentary. It's crazy. It makes you think you're in a simulation. Gosh darn it. Because every once in a while, some wacky coincidence happens where Chris winds up in rehab. Wouldn't you know it? The month the documentary comes out. It's crazy.
No, I was gone for 6 weeks. You pre-recorded episodes because I went to rehab, and I wanted to thank you guys for doing that. I needed to do that. I always should have went to rehab, and I did not until November of this past year. Thank you guys for holding down the fort. I needed to get my mental right, and I needed to get my, I needed to check in with my addiction, and I appreciate you guys for holding it down. So thank you. And I wanted to be transparent and tell people. Thank you.
Transparent. You didn't mention the documentary that came out. I think the reason he mentions the timeline is because I'm not positive on this. He might have technically checked into rehab before the documentary dropped. I don't know the exact timeline on that, but I would say there's probably no way Chris knew this documentary was coming out, right? Kyle Anderson definitely didn't reach out to Chris. None of these people reached out to tell Chris, hey, this documentary is coming out, just so you know. So it's probably just a pure coincidence that Chris checked into the rehab and Kyle Anderson unknowingly released the documentary at that time. Oops.
Whoops-a-daisy.
So that was yet another sign where I was like, oh, God, every reaction this guy has to this is gross.
It really is.
It implies guilt. Where again, he says, I checked into rehab for 6 weeks and I'm trying to be transparent. Transparent means clear. It means you're being open and honest about everything. Why didn't you mention that this very popular documentary came out about you?
You're pretty opaque there, Chris.
I've never heard a good word. I've never heard him talk about that, which is strange because he's a guy who changed and was trying to be, honest and open with everyone. So it's interesting that he never really addressed that. But that's really what made me fully committed to my beliefs now. Well, the apology was one thing where I was like, oof. But it's certainly possible that you could just handle that. I've, thank God, never been in that position. And what's another aspect of this that's interesting, Chris's apology video has 2.1 million views. The Chris D'Elia problem documentary has, I believe, 1.3 million views. So half the people saw this documentary that saw that apology. And that's interesting to me too, is that Chris has been able, if you look at Chris's career now, the last time I saw that he was here in Boston, he sold out the Wang Theater, which is a 3,000 seat venue.
3,500.
So 3,500, even better. Good for Chris. So he's doing much better. And when I criticize that, I've gotten responses where people are like, hey, the man admitted to everything. He paid for his sins.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's just not true. Again, if you're Louis, at the end of the day, Louis C.K. not being ingratiated by Hollywood and having to take a few years off, I think it's wrong how it happened. It's not the end of the world for his career. That's the punishment, I guess you can say, fits the crime. I think it's too harsh, but if you want to have that debate, we can.
If he didn't lose 35 million in one day.
It's a little extensive in my book.
Yeah.
But with Chris, I don't think he's ever properly been punished for this stuff.
No, he went on vacation.
And again, unless it's just not true, unless all these girls got together and said, let's have very similar lies about him, it seems impossible. But to me, it's the same thing with Cosby, where when you have a couple, you could say, hey, maybe they're just trying to get money out of a rich guy. They're trying to make headlines, whatever. When you have 50 or 70, you say, even if a couple of them aren't lying,
right?
So that's where it gets gross to me. And like I said, Chris has never really addressed that.
You have to also look at it like, you know how he's got like a special out and everything?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you would think the lawyers are the people promoting him and like all this stuff would look into this further, right?
And you know what? Maybe Chris's answer would be they have, and they know I'm innocent. Because like I want to kind of stay consistent with what I said at the beginning. even though I have a stronger opinion now, I still don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? There could be some conspiracy out there. If someone proves that, I'm willing to believe it. Like, my mind is still open.
This could be just like the cartoon guy stepping on rakes constantly.
Right. Oops. So yeah, like I'm still not certain. I'm willing to be swayed one direction or the other. Because you're right. Why wouldn't the people that work with him look into it? I think the answer is to make a few dollars. But maybe they know something.
Guy.
Hmm?
Is he worth being like in bed with a pedophile?
I guess if he's still selling out theaters to that magnitude, yes, for like a tour manager or something. I guess to some people, yeah, I suppose. Now, I've said that Chris has never really explained himself. Chris would probably refute that because he did an interview with a program called Soft White Underbelly. Now, I've seen a lot of people praise this guy. We did a segment about him on the Blind Mike Project when this interview dropped.
It was terrific.
And the pushback that I got was, hey, you don't know this guy's interview style, the Soft White Underbelly guy. This is kind of what he does. He comes in and sort of lets the guests say their piece, and he learns from that. That's fine, I guess, if that's what you want to do. I thought it was an odd approach when the accusations are so out there and so public to not push back at all. But he let Chris get his story out. And this is, again, what Chris chose to say. Very similar to the original apology.
In the room.
But what's been the roughest thing you've had to deal with in your life?
In my life, the roughest thing I've had to deal with was being canceled and my life blowing up. 100%. It was the hardest thing I've had to deal with, I would say. Yeah.
That's got to be terrible. Being in the public eye.
Yeah. It's
being singled out like that.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's funny because there's never a.
This was a time when a lot of guys were being picked on, right?
Taken down, yeah.
Taken down.
So I thought, buddy. Get in line.
It's always weird. It's always interesting talking about it because I still feel like there's no real right way to talk about it without people.
Sure, there is.
Just, being angry at all sides of it.
Both sides have
what I'm saying?
Stand on it.
Well, the truth is people lie.
People lie, yeah.
And it's, whatever the media makes something out to be is not the truth. It's just not.
Yeah, so I guess these women are lying, including the women we heard him having a Snapchat phone conversation with, who he was still in communication with.
The best defense that he could have is that nothing's come out in full. No phone conversations, no voicemails.
That's what I was saying. That's what I said about that voicemail, where it's like it's a snippet. They're all snippets. I kind of wish Kyle would, and maybe he doesn't have consent to do it. I don't know. I kind of wish he would release all of it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, probably doesn't help his narrative. That's like the defense he could go with.
Right. And that's something maybe we'll never know. So this is like, you hear Chris again, I guess he says they're lying, and that's his defense. He's never addressed any of these head on. I do believe there's a world, like Chris is saying, well, you can't address these claims because people get angry at you. I believe there's a world where he could address these and reason-minded people would understand his side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you'd still get the angry people online. And I got to tell you, even if he was telling the truth, there would still be people that didn't believe him. Like, that's just the consequence of that. And it's unfortunate. But to brand yourself as getting canceled, Shane Gillis got canceled. Shane Gillis made a joke and lost a job because of it.
Right.
Being accused of sexual crimes is like O.J. Simpson wasn't canceled
Against minors.
Right. Yeah. Jerry Sandusky wasn't canceled.
Right.
So that's my problem with it. Again, I still don't know all the facts. I have a pretty strong opinion on it. And now I did that. I've had two strong opinions on it. It's possible both are wrong. So if you guys want to refute this, you absolutely have that right. But my case is do it reasonably because neither of us know, That's the other thing I don't like is the guys that get on and are like, "Oh, you're jealous of Chris or so." There's some weird thing. Like I don't think I'm going after him irrationally. I think I'm kind of laying out the facts as we know them. And if I'm missing something, feel free to fill in the blanks. But it seems like Chris has done his best to avoid this story while semi-acknowledging it in a manner that allows him to say he acknowledged it.
Mhm.
You know, he can be like, "Hey, I gave an apology. I went to rehab. I did an interview. That's all I needed to do, right? Can I move on with my life? I'm a family man now." But he never addressed that documentary. He never addressed the Rolling Stone article that came out against him. He never addressed the CNN article. The one that stuck to me that we didn't play, I forgot about this. And here's again a caveat that I'll grant you. Rolling Stone is not the beacon of journalism necessarily.
No,
I think Rolling Stone often gets their opinion and says, this is the angle we're going to research.
Yeah.
But there was one particular accusation in that Rolling Stone article that has stuck with me. And it was that Chris forced a girl to suck his dick, and the girl was crying. And he said, if you do what I say, everything will be all right. That is the one that really stuck with me, that Chris has never acknowledged, other than the blanket statement of they're all lying, which I don't believe that they're all lying. So you can't use that. If that one girl is lying, that's interesting. That might change things for me. But again, like Chris has never addressed these allegations head on. And if your comeback to that is, well, there are so many allegations, how could I address every one? That's also not great. You know?
It's like you got a YouTube channel, sit down and address every single one.
And that's what Dave Portnoy did.
Right.
And,
Right.
He kind of looked crazy at the time.
Mhm.
He looked like Lenny Bruce with the court transcripts. But he sat down for 2 or 3 hours or however long it was. He had a projector behind him. It truly seemed insane. But if you look at it in hindsight, he went blow by blow and said, here's my relationship with this girl. Here's where this does not line up. Here's where this isn't true. Like, he went point by point and broke down. And then no one refuted that after. No one was like, oh, no, he's lying about this. It just kind of went away.
Right.
So I think Chris is wrong in saying that there's no way to handle it. But the reason I wanted to do this episode is because we are 5 years later, and it's not like it got settled. Like, I keep using the Louis C.K. analogy because I think there is a parallel there, where I think with Louis, cooler heads prevailed. You know,
Yeah.
I think there still people exist that would classify him as a vicious predator that shouldn't be in society, and still there are people exist that think he did absolutely nothing wrong, and most lie somewhere in the middle, where hey, maybe it was creepy and weird, it wasn't illegal, whatever. I think with Chris, none of that has ever really been resolved.
Chris needs a Sarah Silverman like Louis had, that kind of showed like, yeah, who cares, you know?
Right. So, something like that. And, Louis never really addressed it outside of his stand-up routine.
Which is funny with the sorry in the background.
It was well, even before that, in Sincerely, he talked about it a little. He didn't talk about it in the way people liked, but I do think he addressed it. And even in that, even though it was done through humor and it wasn't a serious sit-down 60 minutes interview, I do think he addressed it enough, partly because that's already the opinion I had, and he kind of validated that. Chris has never done it. The most Chris has addressed it is like, listen, you nailed me. I cheated. I was a naughty husband. And it's like, yeah, that's not what anyone had a problem with, really.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. Am I on the righteous path now? Or do you think I've gone astray? Maybe there's something I'm missing and you guys can convince me. I know none of you will listen to this, but I just ask you do it in a reasonable manner. Don't scream at me via the internet. But fire away. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be curious to hear the feedback on this one. And I'll also be curious to hear, do you like episodes like this where it's a more serious matter? I think we kept it light and had fun with it about as much as we could. But
nothing says my sides are in stitches like pedophiles.
Yeah, I think we had a few laughs, come on. So do you like episodes like this? Or do you prefer we stick with the bio? Because I look at this as similar to what we always do. It is a biography of sorts.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious to hear the feedback on this one. Let me know in the comments. Support the show wherever you get podcasts. If you like this program, go back to the archives, find episodes you've missed, and support the show wherever you get podcasts. Like, comment, subscribe. That helps the show grow, helps more people find it. If you like this episode and comment on it, maybe more people interested in this subject will be able to find it. And if you want to go above and beyond, become a member on Patreon or YouTube, get early access and bonus episodes. We appreciate your support there. blindmike.net is the easiest place to find all those links. And verygoodshow.org is where you can go to support Craig and all of his illicit activities.
I know. I know.
Listen, wherever you stand, maybe you agree with me and say Chris D'Elia is a monster, or you agree with Chris D'Elia, in which case I say go to verygoodshow.org. Right? Go to blindmike.net or verygoodshow.org. Leave which website you're visiting in the comments. And we appreciate your guys' support. And we will talk to you next time on Why Are You Laughing?
Oh, really, dude? Oh, there's a ring of pedophilia that the top producers know about and confide in each other in and keep kids and pass them around and fuck them? Oh, really, dude? This is how you know life reps.
Hey, no dance, bitch, you know the deal. Tap my name on your wrist so I know it's real. Bitches over 20, there's just no appeal. Beat the box young like I'm Holyfield. I feel like a predator, a predator, a predator. Fuck the money and the fame, I'm a predator, a predator, a predator. What's my motherfucking name? I ain't playing with you bitches. I got a family, I ain't staying with you bitches. Fuck that, ain't no code, but I've been praying on you bitches. Pull up with daddy's milk and spread on you bitches. Bet my wife don't know the difference. What's your Snapchat and what's your OnlyFans? Oh, you only 16, what's your Instagram? Baby, where your bottle at? I hope you like to drink. I'm mostly sober, but I brought you this Moscato pink. You don't even gotta think, I can do it for you. Move you in a house with 30 bitches and record you. If I get caught, I'll apologize on video and lie to my audience and wife as I live my double life as a predator, a predator, a predator. I ain't never gonna stop, I'm a predator, a predator, a predator. To the day I drop, all I do is pray, pray, pray. All I do is pray, pray, pray. All I do is pray, pray, pray. All I do is pray, pray, pray.
Zip it up and zip it out.